Royal Guard kicks out Camilla after she claims the late queen's property for her own family. Camilla had always lived in the shadow of the royal family. She knew what it meant to be married into royalty, to walk the line between public admiration and scrutiny, and to be constantly judged by millions of eyes across the world. She had learned to smile politely at every event, to nod at every speech, and to make herself as unobtrusive as possible during state affairs. But the late queen's passing had changed everything. With the crown now fully in the public eye and the royal properties under discussion, Camilla suddenly found herself facing a new kind of challenge, one that she had never encountered before. For years, she had quietly observed the workings of the palace, noticing how traditions and family ties intertwined in ways that were invisible to outsiders. She knew that the queen had a deep affection for her family and had always made sure they were included in private celebrations and personal decisions. It was these memories, these glimpses into the queen's private world, that gave Camilla the courage to speak up when she felt her own family was being overlooked. It began on a quiet afternoon in one of the palace's smaller drawing rooms. Camilla had requested a meeting with her closest advisors, a mix of legal experts and personal friends who had served her for years. She spoke with unusual firmness, a calm that belied the storm she felt inside. She explained that she believed certain properties, previously overlooked or assumed to remain strictly within the crown's hands, held a personal connection to her family. These properties had been gifts or gestures of affection from the late queen, meant not only for ceremonial purposes, but also to honor the bonds she shared with Camilla's relatives. Her advisors listened carefully, weighing the delicate balance between royal tradition and legal rights. One by one, they highlighted the complexities of her position. They reminded her that royal property was rarely private, that many estates were legally bound to remain within the crown, and that public opinion could quickly turn against anyone seen as trying to claim personal ownership. Yet, Camilla remained resolute. She argued that while she understood the rules, there were personal elements in these estates that could not be ignored, and her family's connection deserved recognition. Word of her intentions quickly reached the ears of the palace staff. Whispered conversations filled the corridors, as staff members debated whether this was a simple misunderstanding or the beginning of a serious dispute. The royal guard, who had long been responsible for protecting the queen's property and ensuring the integrity of her estate, began monitoring the situation closely. Their duty was clear. No one, regardless of rank or family ties, could make claims on the queen's possessions without approval from the official channels. Despite the growing tension, Camilla chose to go public with her perspective. In a carefully worded statement to select media outlets, she shared her view that certain properties had a personal significance for her family, and that she hoped a resolution could be reached in a way that respected both tradition and familial bonds. Her words were measured, polite, but firm. She emphasized respect for the late queen and her legacy, while subtly asserting that her family's connection could not be ignored. The media reaction was instantaneous. Headlines splashed across newspapers and social media feeds. Camilla claims late queen's property. Royal family tensions rise. Controversy over queen's estates. Journalists analyzed every word, every nuance, trying to uncover whether this was a legal claim, a personal plea, or a calculated attempt to secure valuable assets. Public opinion was divided. Some admired her courage, saying she had the right to speak up for her family. Others criticized her, arguing that it was inappropriate to publicly claim parts of the queen's estate without formal approval. Inside the palace, tension grew. Advisors and legal experts convened repeatedly, drafting responses, assessing documents, and consulting historical precedents. The late queen had always left detailed instructions for her properties, but ambiguity existed in some cases. Some estates had long been managed as part of the crown's holdings, while others were historically tied to families close to the queen. Determining what could legally and ethically belong to Camilla's family required careful investigation. Camilla, meanwhile, continued her quiet visits to some of the estates in question. She remembered the queen showing her around as a young bride, pointing out rooms with personal meaning, and telling stories about family members who had once lived there or contributed to the royal legacy. Each memory reinforced her belief that her claim was not selfish, but rooted in respect for history and family tradition. She began to write down these memories, preparing a personal account that could later support her position if legal discussions became necessary. The royal guard, observing all of this, grew concerned. Their role was to uphold the queen's wishes and protect the property from claims that could disrupt the estate's integrity. They began reviewing security protocols and preparing for the possibility that Camilla might try to access parts of the estate independently. They understood that any confrontation needed to be handled with dignity, without causing a public scandal that could tarnish the monarchy's image. As days passed, the situation became a delicate dance between public visibility and private negotiation. Camilla met with trusted advisors daily, discussing strategy, tone, and approach. She knew that a misstep could escalate the situation, drawing criticism not only from the public but also from within the royal family. She balanced her desire to honor her family's connection to the queen's properties with the need to maintain respect for the rules that had governed the palace for generations. Meanwhile, the media continued to speculate. Opinion pieces debated the fairness of her claim, historical analysts examined precedents, and royal commentators dissected the subtleties of her statement. Social media amplified every detail, creating a whirlwind of opinions that ranged from sympathy to outrage. Every public appearance by Camilla was scrutinized, and every word she spoke in interviews was analyzed for hidden meaning. Despite the pressure, Camilla remained composed. She understood that this moment was about more than property. It was about legacy, respect, and family. She knew she had to navigate carefully, balancing the desire to honor her family's ties with the need to uphold the dignity of the late queen. In private, she reflected on the lessons she had learned during her years in the royal circle: patience, discretion, and the importance of measured action. The first part of the saga ended with a sense of anticipation. Camilla's public claim had set the stage for a confrontation that could redefine her role within the royal family. Advisors, staff, and the royal guard all prepared for what was to come, understanding that the coming weeks would require tact, patience, and unwavering attention to protocol. Camilla, for her part, remained quietly determined, believing that her family's connection to the queen's properties deserved recognition, even if it meant standing firm in the face of public scrutiny and institutional resistance. In the quiet moments, away from cameras and reporters, she would often walk through the gardens of the palace, reflecting on memories of the late queen. She remembered laughter, stories, and moments of genuine warmth that were private and personal. These memories fueled her conviction. To Camilla, this was not about greed or power. It was about preserving a bond that she felt deeply, a connection that deserved acknowledgement. She understood the risks, but her sense of duty to her family and the queen's memory made her willing to take the first step in what would become a very public and challenging journey. By the end of these days, the story had already captured the attention of the nation. Conversations around dinner tables, debates in cafes, and discussions in offices everywhere reflected a mixture of fascination and controversy. Camilla's careful approach, combined with the royal guard's vigilance and the palace's concern for protocol, had created a tense but intriguing situation. The first chapter of this real-life drama was complete, and the world watched, waiting to see what would happen next. The situation around Camilla's claim grew more tense with each passing day. What had started as a quiet assertion of her family's connection to the late queen's properties had now become a matter of palace security, legal concern, and public interest. The royal guard, whose duty was to protect the queen's estate and ensure that protocol was followed, had begun monitoring the situation closely. They understood that any misstep could lead to a scandal, one that could tarnish not just Camilla's reputation, but also the dignity of the royal family itself. It was a crisp morning when the confrontation occurred. Camilla had arrived at one of the estates in question, a beautiful old property that had always held personal significance for her. She walked through the gardens with a sense of calm determination, recalling the late queen's laughter and the stories she had shared about family history. To Camilla, these memories made the property feel like more than just a house. It felt like a link to the past, a part of her family's story that deserved recognition. However, she was unaware that the royal guard had already been informed of her arrival. Their officers had quietly positioned themselves near the estate, ensuring that any interactions would remain orderly but firm. When Camilla stepped onto the property, she was met not with a warm welcome, but with the disciplined presence of the guards. They stood at attention, their expressions serious but respectful. It was a moment that symbolized the tension between personal desire and institutional duty. One of the senior guards, a man with decades of experience and a reputation for fairness, approached Camilla. His voice was calm but carried an unmistakable authority. He explained that while her connection to the estate was acknowledged, the property remained under the control of the Crown and could not be accessed without formal approval. He stressed that the Queen's directives had always been clear regarding property management and that any claims had to go through official channels. Camilla listened attentively, her expression composed but her heart racing. She had anticipated resistance, but hearing it firsthand was different from imagining it. She spoke with poise, emphasizing that her family's historical connection to the property was real and meaningful. She argued that her intentions were not to cause conflict or challenge the Crown's authority, but simply to honor her family's place in the Queen's legacy. The conversation grew more intense as the guard explained the legal boundaries. He reminded Camilla that the Crown's properties were carefully managed, often with intricate legal agreements and historical precedent. Any attempt to assert ownership without proper authorization could lead to complications for both her and the royal estate. Camilla nodded, understanding the complexity, but she also maintained her position. She highlighted personal moments, stories shared by the late Queen, and her family's long-standing involvement in royal life. Each detail was meant to demonstrate that her claim was not arbitrary, but grounded in genuine history and familial connection. As the discussion continued, tension filled the air. Observers later described the exchange as polite yet firm, a clash of duty and personal sentiment. The royal guard remained professional, ensuring that the conversation did not escalate into confrontation, while Camilla maintained her dignity, refusing to be intimidated. It was clear to everyone involved that this was not a matter that could be resolved in a single discussion. Word of the confrontation quickly spread to the palace. Advisors and legal experts were immediately called in to assess the situation. Some recommended a calm, private negotiation, emphasizing discretion and respect for both Camilla and the estate. Others warned that public attention could spiral out of control if not managed carefully. Meanwhile, the media had already picked up on rumors, speculating about what had occurred and why the royal guard had intervened. Headlines began appearing, some sympathetic to Camilla and others critical, framing the story as a dramatic dispute over royal property. Inside the palace, conversations were tense. The Queen's remaining family members were concerned about how this confrontation might affect public perception and internal harmony. They debated whether to issue a formal statement or allow the matter to be handled quietly through legal channels. Advisors reminded them that the royal guard's presence had been necessary to uphold protocol and prevent potential disputes, but they also acknowledged that the optics were delicate. Camilla's public claim had already created waves, and any misstep could escalate into a larger controversy. Meanwhile, Camilla's family watched the situation unfold with concern. Some members felt she had acted boldly, asserting a right they believed was genuine. Others worried that the confrontation might backfire, creating tension with the palace that could last for years. They tried to advise her, suggesting caution and emphasizing the importance of diplomacy, but Camilla remained determined. She believed that her family's historical connection to the Queen's property deserved recognition, and she was willing to face the consequences of standing by that belief. The royal guard, for their part, acted with precision. They understood the delicate balance required in this situation. Their goal was not to embarrass or intimidate Camilla, but to ensure that the rules governing royal property were respected. Officers monitored access, recorded discussions, and prepared detailed reports for palace advisors. They were careful to remain professional, aware that any hint of overreach could be criticized in the press or interpreted as unnecessary force. As the day progressed, the confrontation evolved into a series of structured negotiations. Legal advisors joined the discussion, clarifying property rights and historical precedents. Camilla presented her personal stories, highlighting her family's connections to the estates and emphasizing the emotional significance of the properties. The advisors acknowledged her perspective, but reminded her that access and ownership were governed by strict legal frameworks. The conversation was careful and measured, balancing empathy with adherence to protocol. Public interest continued to rise. Social media users shared clips, articles, and commentary about the confrontation. Analysts debated whether the royal guard's actions were appropriate, whether Camilla's claim had merit, and how this incident might impact the monarchy's image. Opinion polls showed a divided public. Some expressed support for Camilla's courage and sense of family duty, while others criticized her for challenging established rules. The palace remained largely silent, further fueling speculation and discussion. Despite the growing scrutiny, Camilla remained composed. She spent time reflecting on her interactions with the royal guard, reviewing the discussions, and preparing for the next steps. She understood that this confrontation was just the beginning of a longer process. Legal consultations, family discussions, and palace negotiations were likely to follow. Her focus was on maintaining dignity, respect, and patience, knowing that hasty actions could worsen the situation. In private moments, Camilla revisited memories of the late queen, recalling times when the queen had personally shown her affection for her family. These recollections strengthened her resolve. She reminded herself that her goal was not to create conflict, but to honor the connections that had always existed. She believed that, with time and careful negotiation, a resolution could be reached that respected both her family's ties and the protocols of the crown. By evening, the first day of direct confrontation had ended. Camilla left the estate, accompanied by her advisors, while the royal guard maintained their watch. Both sides had presented their perspectives, and though no formal resolution had been reached, a foundation had been laid for further discussion. The exchange had been intense, respectful, and revealing, a clear demonstration of the tension between personal ties and institutional rules. The aftermath of the confrontation extended beyond the estate. Palace staff discussed the incident, analyzing how it might affect future interactions with family members and public perception. Camilla's family debated next steps, weighing the importance of public statements against private negotiation. Media outlets continued to cover the story, highlighting the unusual nature of a royal guard directly confronting a member of the royal family over property claims. Public curiosity remained high, with discussions online and in private circles about fairness, tradition, and personal connection. Throughout it all, Camilla remained thoughtful and composed. She knew that patience, tact, and careful planning would be essential in the days to come. She continued to meet with advisors, document her family's historical connections, and prepare for any legal or procedural challenges that might arise. Her interactions with the royal guard had taught her the importance of respecting institutional boundaries, even while advocating for what she believed was right. By the end of the week, the story of Camilla's confrontation with the royal guard had captured the attention of the nation. Analysts and commentators continued to debate the implications, both for the royal family and for public understanding of property and tradition. Camilla's calm and measured approach, combined with the professionalism of the royal guard, had prevented the situation from spiraling out of control, but the incident had already left a lasting impression on all involved. The second part of the saga closed with a clear understanding. This was more than a personal claim or a legal dispute. It was a test of boundaries, of respect, and of the delicate balance between private family connections and public duty. Camilla had taken a bold step in asserting her perspective, and the royal guard had acted decisively to protect the integrity of the Queen's estate. Both sides knew that the days ahead would require careful navigation, diplomacy, and unwavering attention to the traditions that defined royal life. After the confrontation between Camilla and the royal guard, news of the event spread like wildfire. What had been a private dispute over property quickly became the center of public attention. Social media was alive with speculation, discussion, and debate. Everyone seemed to have an opinion. Some praised Camilla for standing up for her family, calling her courageous and determined. Others criticized her, saying it was inappropriate to publicly claim royal property without proper permission. Newspapers, TV channels, and online platforms ran stories, often exaggerating the details to capture the public's attention. Camilla found herself in the middle of a media storm she had not anticipated, and it was only the beginning. Inside the palace, tensions were also rising. Advisors and senior officials convened multiple meetings to discuss how to respond to the growing attention. They understood that public opinion could shape the narrative and potentially affect the royal family's reputation. Some suggested issuing a formal statement clarifying the rules of inheritance and property rights, while others recommended handling the matter quietly behind closed doors to avoid further controversy. The royal guard, who had managed the confrontation with utmost professionalism, was praised internally for their firm yet respectful handling of the situation. However, the incident had already made it clear that the delicate balance between tradition, family, and public perception was fragile. Meanwhile, Camilla continued her efforts to defend her position. She met with her advisors daily, reviewing historical records, personal letters, and family accounts that might strengthen her argument. She wanted to demonstrate that her claim was not about wealth or power, but about honoring her family's connection to the Queen. She carefully documented each memory, every personal story shared by the late Queen, and each historical link to the properties in question. Her advisors helped her organize these details into a coherent presentation, emphasizing respect for the crown while asserting her family's connection. Public interest intensified as journalists uncovered more details about the Queen's properties and Camilla's claims. Headlines varied widely, from sympathetic portrayals to critical analyses. Opinion polls showed that the public was deeply divided. Some admired Camilla for her bravery, believing she had the right to stand up for her family. Others viewed her actions as overstepping boundaries, arguing that royal property was not meant for individual claims, but for the crown and its official heirs. Social media platforms were particularly active, with discussions ranging from polite debate to heated arguments, further amplifying the pressure on all parties involved. As the story unfolded, Camilla's family also became a topic of discussion. Private disagreements emerged within her own circle. Some family members encouraged her to continue her claims, believing that the public would eventually support her position. Others cautioned her, warning that prolonged public attention could damage her reputation and strain relations with the palace. Camilla listened to each perspective carefully, weighing the risks and benefits of every decision. She remained focused on the principle that her claim was rooted in personal history and family respect, rather than ambition or entitlement. The royal guard maintained a careful watch throughout this period. They understood that any misstep could escalate the situation further. Officers continued to monitor access to the properties in question, ensuring that Camilla and her advisors complied with protocols. They prepared detailed reports of every interaction, providing the palace with accurate information about developments. While their role was primarily protective and procedural, their presence served as a reminder that the integrity of the Queen's estate could not be compromised. During this time, legal experts also became involved. They examined the historical documents, family records, and property agreements to determine the legitimacy of Camilla's claim. Some aspects were straightforward, confirming that the properties were legally bound to the crown. Other elements were more ambiguous, involving long-standing family traditions and informal agreements made by the late Queen. These gray areas created opportunities for negotiation, but also heightened the risk of conflict. Camilla and her advisors carefully considered every legal detail, knowing that even minor misinterpretations could have significant consequences. As the weeks passed, public discussion reached a fever pitch. Commentators on television and radio debated the fairness of Camilla's claims, while social media users shared personal opinions and historical anecdotes. Some people sympathized with her position, citing examples from history where family members had legitimate claims to royal property. Others emphasized that the monarchy operated under strict rules and that any deviation could set a dangerous precedent. The palace remained cautious, balancing the need to protect its assets with the desire to avoid fueling public controversy. Amid this public scrutiny, Camilla tried to maintain her normal life. She attended family gatherings, met with close friends, and continued her charitable work, all while being mindful of the media attention. Each appearance was carefully planned, as she knew that any comment could be misinterpreted or sensationalized. Despite the pressure, she remained composed, demonstrating grace under scrutiny. Her ability to navigate these challenges quietly earned respect from some royal observers, who noted her poise in the face of intense public and institutional pressure. The media, however, continued to intensify coverage. Paparazzi followed Camilla's movements, and journalists reached out to sources close to both her family and the palace. Rumors spread about potential legal battles, internal disagreements, and possible settlements. While some stories were exaggerated, others revealed small truths that added complexity to the situation. Camilla's advisors worked tirelessly to manage public perception, issuing carefully worded statements and emphasizing the personal and historical nature of her claims. They stressed that her intent was never to disrupt the crown, but to honor her family's connection to the Queen's legacy. Inside the palace, discussions focused on potential resolutions. Advisors considered private negotiations with Camilla, legal clarifications, and strategies to preserve the integrity of the Queen's estate. Some suggested formal mediation, while others proposed a gradual approach, allowing Camilla to present her case while ensuring compliance with royal protocols. The Royal Guard's reports and observations played a crucial role in these discussions, providing detailed accounts of interactions and reinforcing the importance of maintaining both security and dignity. Camilla's family continued to provide support, though not without debate. Some members encouraged her to pursue a public claim, believing that transparency would strengthen their position. Others urged caution, emphasizing the importance of patience and discretion. Camilla listened to each voice, weighing the advice carefully. She recognized that the path she had chosen was difficult, requiring a balance between assertiveness and respect, between public visibility and private negotiation. The situation also sparked discussions about tradition and modernity within the monarchy. Commentators and experts debated how historical practices should be applied in contemporary times, particularly when personal family connections intersected with institutional rules. Camilla's claim became a case study in balancing respect for history with adherence to established protocols. Public interest in these debates was intense, reflecting both curiosity about royal affairs and broader questions about fairness, legacy, and family rights. Despite the scrutiny and pressure, Camilla remained committed to her position. She continued to document personal memories, historical links, and family stories, preparing a comprehensive account of her claim. Her goal was clear: to demonstrate that her request was rooted in history, respect, and family ties, not personal gain. She understood that the outcome would require patience, diplomacy, and careful navigation of both public opinion and legal protocols. The days turned into weeks, and the public's attention remained focused on the unfolding drama. Social media continued to buzz with speculation, news outlets ran follow-up stories, and public debates remained intense. Camilla's composure, professionalism, and dedication to her family's legacy became central themes in the coverage. Meanwhile, the Royal Guard continued their role quietly but effectively, ensuring that the Queen's estate remained secure and that interactions with Camilla and her advisors were conducted with dignity and respect. By the end of this period, it was clear that the situation had reached a critical point. Camilla's public claim had sparked discussion across the nation, testing the balance between personal connection and institutional protocol. Legal, historical, and familial aspects all intersected, creating a complex and delicate scenario. Both the palace and Camilla understood that the coming weeks would be decisive in shaping the resolution. Part 3 of this story closed with a sense of anticipation. The confrontation with the Royal Guard had already taken place, and the public response had amplified the situation. Now, the focus shifted to negotiations, legal clarity, and the potential for resolution. Camilla's courage, determination, and careful planning had kept her in the discussion, while the Royal Guard's professionalism ensured that the Queen's estate remained protected. The stage was set for the next chapter, where decisions would have to be made, compromises considered, and the balance between family, tradition, and protocol carefully maintained. After weeks of tension, public debate, and careful negotiation, the situation surrounding Camilla and her claim to the late Queen's properties finally began to move toward resolution. The weeks of confrontation, media scrutiny, and internal palace discussions had created an atmosphere of anticipation and concern. Everyone involved, Camilla, her family, the royal guard, and the palace advisors, knew that the next steps would be decisive, determining not only the fate of the property claims but also the public perception of the royal family. Camilla, throughout this period, had remained composed. She had maintained her dignity despite relentless media attention and ongoing public speculation. Her approach had been consistent, respectful of the crown, committed to her family, and patient with the process. Behind the scenes, she and her advisors had continued compiling documentation, personal recollections, and historical context to support her claim. Each day, she reviewed letters, photographs, and stories from the Queen that demonstrated her family's connection to the estates in question. Inside the palace, advisors and senior officials worked tirelessly to ensure that the matter could be resolved without escalating further. They recognized Camilla's genuine attachment to the properties and the emotional significance they held for her family, but they also had a responsibility to maintain the integrity of the Queen's estate. Legal experts provided clarity on the official ownership and the historical context, highlighting which properties could be considered strictly crown property and which might allow room for personal acknowledgement. The Royal Guard continued to play a critical role during this period. Their presence remained discreet but firm, ensuring that access to the properties was carefully controlled while also respecting Camilla's position. Officers monitored movements, documented discussions, and coordinated with palace advisors to maintain order and prevent any potential conflict. The Guard's professionalism had already set a tone of authority tempered with respect, and their careful management of the situation had helped prevent the controversy from escalating further. Finally, after multiple private meetings and detailed discussions, the palace arranged a formal negotiation with Camilla. The session was designed to address her claims in a structured, respectful, and legally sound manner. Camilla entered the room with her advisors, prepared to present her documentation and articulate her position. Across from her were senior royal advisors and representatives of the Royal Guard, ready to explain the official standpoint and ensure that protocol was observed. The atmosphere was serious but respectful, reflecting the high stakes of the discussion. Camilla began by sharing her personal memories of the late Queen. She recounted moments in the estates, stories shared by the Queen, and the significance these places had held for her family. Her tone was calm, her words measured, and her respect for the crown evident in every statement. She emphasized that her claim was not about financial gain or personal power, but about honoring a connection that had been meaningful and enduring. The advisors listened attentively, taking notes and considering the evidence she presented. In response, the palace representatives acknowledged Camilla's memories and the emotional connection she described. However, they clarified that the legal ownership of the properties was non-negotiable. The majority of the Queen's estates were bound to the crown, and any formal claim required approval through official channels. They carefully explained the historical and legal framework, highlighting the need to preserve tradition and ensure continuity in the management of royal property. As the discussion progressed, both sides worked to find a balance. Camilla expressed her hope that even if formal ownership was not possible, her family could be recognized in meaningful ways. She suggested honorary rights, personal access for family gatherings, or acknowledgement in the estate's history. The advisors considered these proposals carefully, understanding that while legal ownership could not be transferred, certain gestures could honor Camilla's family connection without compromising the integrity of the crown. Negotiations continued for hours, with both parties demonstrating patience and professionalism. At several points, Camilla's advisors offered additional historical documentation, reinforcing her position, while the palace representatives carefully reviewed each piece of information. The Royal Guard maintained order, ensuring that the discussion remained respectful and that all protocols were observed. Despite the potential for tension, the atmosphere remained constructive, a reflection of the careful preparation and mutual respect on both sides. By the end of the day, a resolution began to take shape. Camilla agreed to retract her public claims regarding formal ownership, acknowledging the crown's legal authority over the estates. In return, the palace offered accommodations to honor her family's connection. This included private visits to certain parts of the estates, acknowledgement in official historical records, and the opportunity for family events under careful coordination. Both sides recognized the importance of maintaining dignity and respect, and the agreement represented a compromise that balanced emotional connection with legal and traditional obligations. Once the agreement was reached, Camilla issued a public statement. She expressed her respect for the late queen and for the crown, clarified her intentions, and emphasized the importance of family connections. Her statement was widely praised for its grace and sincerity. Media outlets noted her ability to maintain composure, respect tradition, and navigate a complex situation without causing further controversy. Public reaction was generally positive, with many admiring her patience, diplomacy, and determination to honor her family's legacy while respecting the rules of the monarchy. The Royal Guard's role in the resolution was also highlighted. Observers noted that their firm but respectful handling of the initial confrontation had set the stage for a smooth negotiation. Their professionalism ensured that the Queen's properties remained protected, while also allowing Camilla to present her perspective. Analysts described the incident as an example of how the Guard's discretion and authority could prevent conflicts from escalating into public crises. Inside the palace, advisors reflected on the lessons learned. They recognized the need for clear communication, careful planning, and sensitivity to family connections. The incident reinforced the importance of balancing tradition with compassion and of finding solutions that respect both legal frameworks and personal histories. Camilla's approach, characterized by patience, respect, and careful documentation, was seen as a model for handling delicate situations involving royal property and family ties. For Camilla and her family, the resolution brought a sense of relief. The process had been challenging, requiring courage, diplomacy, and careful planning, but the outcome allowed them to maintain their connection to the Queen's legacy without causing conflict or scandal. Camilla continued to visit the estates, now with the formal acknowledgement of her family's connection, and she found comfort in preserving the memories and traditions that had always been important to her. The public also responded positively in the weeks following the resolution. Social media discussions shifted from speculation and criticism to appreciation of the respectful outcome. Commentators highlighted the importance of patience, negotiation, and respect for tradition. The story became a case study in how sensitive issues could be handled with dignity, showing that even high-profile disputes could be resolved without public scandal when both sides acted thoughtfully. The Royal Guard returned to their regular duties, having successfully managed one of the more publicized confrontations in recent memory. Their professionalism and discretion had prevented escalation, preserved the integrity of the Queen's properties, and allowed Camilla to maintain her dignity. The incident was noted internally as an example of effective protocol enforcement combined with respect for personal connections. Camilla, reflecting on the entire experience, felt a sense of closure. She understood that the journey had been about more than property. It had been about family, respect, and the preservation of memory. Her patience, careful preparation, and respectful approach had allowed her to achieve acknowledgement without causing unnecessary conflict. She continued her charitable work and family involvement, now with renewed confidence in her ability to navigate complex situations with grace. In the broader context, the episode highlighted several important lessons. It demonstrated the importance of clear communication between family members and institutional authorities, the value of patience and respect in negotiations, and the critical role of professionals like the Royal Guard in maintaining order and dignity. For the public, it offered a glimpse into the complexities of royal life, showing that even seemingly simple disputes could involve intricate layers of tradition, legality, and personal history. Ultimately, the resolution of Camilla's claim became a story not of conflict, but of compromise and understanding. Both Camilla and the palace had achieved their goals. The crown's properties remained secure and respected, and Camilla's family received recognition for their historical connection. The careful negotiation, measured communication, and mutual respect ensured that the story ended on a positive note, demonstrating that difficult situations could be resolved with thoughtfulness and integrity. The incident, now concluded, left lasting impressions on all involved. Camilla had navigated a challenging and highly publicized situation with dignity and intelligence. The royal guard had demonstrated the importance of balancing authority with respect. The palace had reinforced its commitment to tradition, while showing flexibility in acknowledging personal and familial connections. For the public, the story offered insight into the human side of royalty, reminding everyone that even in institutions governed by strict rules, empathy, respect, and careful negotiation remain essential. By the end of the saga, Camilla had regained her sense of peace. The properties she valued remained under the crown's protection, but her family's connection had been formally acknowledged, and she had maintained her dignity throughout the process. The royal guard returned to routine duties, the palace continued its careful stewardship of royal estates, and the media gradually shifted focus to other stories. Camilla, now more experienced and confident, reflected on the lessons learned and the importance of patience, preparation, and respect in navigating both family and public challenges. The story concluded as a testament to the power of diplomacy, the importance of historical awareness, and the ability to resolve conflicts respectfully. Camilla's journey, from public claim to negotiated resolution, became an example of how thoughtful, patient, and respectful actions can turn potentially explosive situations into opportunities for understanding, acknowledgement, and lasting dignity.